has now been around for 3 seasons, and coaches everywhere are saving time and being more efficient when it comes to scout cards. Coach Robinson from Texas says, "The thing I most enjoy is the ease of access to all the scout cards and how I can draw on them if I need to make any changes. Every coach that uses it says that it is so great to use. If you and your staff are tired of the old ways of preparing and using scout cards, check out thecoachpad.com to start enjoying Scout Team and making the 2023 season better than ever."
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. We have a returning guest, my friend, the defensive coordinator at Centerville High School here in Ohio, Coach John Puckett. John, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me on again.
No problem, my friend. No problem. I think as most people who have watched my stuff know, I mean, you're the Ripple is guy. I think that's kind of what you're known for. You guys play a lot more cover one and other things this year, but that's more out of the necessity of adapting to your kids. But as me and you've kind of texted back and forth, I've kind of I rewatched your first clinic, and then I've been going through Kogan's stuff. And then me and you've exchanged some other stuff and some ideas. So I'm going to pick your brain on that a little bit. But first, before we get in that, do you want to kind of talk about how, I mean, you guys had a pretty good season this year, finishing up against Springfield at the end of the year in the playoffs. Do you want to kind of talk about how your year went?
Yeah. We were really, we had a lot better year than I had anticipated. I knew this defense could be pretty good because on paper we were very talented, but we were undersized and everywhere. And I thought so. It just kind of depended on kind of how the kids came together and the unit, they worked really hard in practice. And then the thing about them that really stood out was that we were really athletic and really physical. The kids would get to the football, and they were very violent at the point of attack. For the most part, we had our games where, we got beat up at the end of the year and those types of things. So, but they really got after the quarterback this year. Did a really good job. I had the numbers in front of me at one point, but we were up pretty close to, we had a little over 40 sacks this year. Caused a bunch of fumbles, had a ton of hits on the quarterback, created quite a few turnovers. So that was the one thing about them. So we had to move a lot because they were so small. So, but we had our two inside backers, three out of our four backers were great blitzers. So, we brought them quite a bit, and they just they wreaked havoc on most teams that we played. Obviously Springfield was another animal. They got the ball out so quick, and hell, we thought we were athletic. Jeez, those guys were crazy athletic, and but we got a couple shots on them, and we had some good series against them. We just couldn't put it together. But this team they were really good, and they were a lot of fun to coach. You have teams where you play 11, 12 games, and they just kind of wear you out. And not these guys, man. I loved them. I loved seeing them every day. I love coaching them. They were a lot of fun. They were really bought into kind of what we were trying to do, and so I got pretty close with with them, and so it was a lot of fun this year. It was a good time.
Good. Now I won't ask you questions, and some of them might be dumb questions. But again, I have decided to go down to a Ripley's studying rabbit hole the past couple weeks. So some of this might be dumb questions, some of it might not be. But again, I'm referencing all my Ripley's knowledge. Just be mindful of this on text with you, one of your 2 clinics, and a Kogan presentation. So be mindful of that before you call me an idiot. Okay, because I know it's the first time. So first one, I'm just gonna be a smart ass. Because that's who I am.
Right.
So when I look at 6 skate, or I mean one of your trips adjustments, would you classify that as really just playing country cover 3?
Oh yeah. Like you know, skate is, to me, I mean, it's an area call. Like 6 skate, 3 buzz. I mean, everybody runs it. They just don't call it that. Yeah. Anybody that runs, that lives and dies by cover 3, when you get an unbalanced formation, you know, empty or 3x1, they're going to have, that adjustment, or else you're going to get outnumbered. I mean, because really, skate and 3 buzz are nothing but a pre-snap area call if they were 2x2. You got the fast 3 rule, where if you're going to push everybody to the side of the back when he's getting out fast, that just turns into skate. The difference is where it's not country cover 3, in my opinion, is because you're pushing, your landmarks are people and not, 2 yards outside the hash, at 12 yards depth is the curl, right? Like, we're not pushing there. We're pushing, our aiming point is to the inside hip of number 2. Like, and then where he breaks his route off or whatever he does, that is where we will square up and get our eyes back and, and look for work coming through our zone. I think that's, country cover 3. So if you're just pushing to a landmark and then you're just vision and break off the quarterback, I think that's where we are different, because we are still matching the routes in our zone. Like, we're worried about our zone, but we're matching the routes as they pass through, not just trying to, read the quarterback and then drive on the ball as it comes out. That's where I think it differs. We still have some of the same principles. Like, if you're getting high load, you want to play it from the top down. So you have to be really aware of what's going on. But to me, the way I explain it to the kids, we take 53 1/3 and we condense it by pushing a receiver. So we're able to shrink the windows of where the receiver can go and the quarterback, can try to place the ball, as opposed to blanketing the whole field, which is not what we're trying to do. Right. We're still trying to match routes in our zone with zone integrity. So we're trying to stack everything from the top down and not trying to allow ourselves to get so spread out.
Okay.
That's where I think it's different.
Okay. That's why I was kind of wondering, because I'm watching you and Kogan explain this, and then I'm looking. I mean, I can look at as many playbooks as I want, but it doesn't really matter unless somebody explains to me. And we've had that conversation twice now, off screen, about just terminology and what people use and how we sometimes make it more complicated than it has to be. In there, you mentioned area calls, and that was going to be one of the other questions I was going to mention you. Can you explain that a little bit more in depth of what an area call is, especially for a hook and seam player? What that actually is?
It's I mean, you can set up your own rules, but basically the simplest way to put it is is that if we give an area call pre-snap, that is letting everyone on that side of the field know that we are passing routes off on our side. Like, so we're playing zone to that side. We're not like if we have a pre-snap area call, if the seam player says or gives a pre-snap area call, he's telling the hook player, hey, you got the hook, so I'm the 3-through guy, so you don't have to chase across or coming across the field. Like, I got it now because I'm becoming the curl flat player only. And that lets the corner and the free safety know, hey, if 2 is in the seam, I'm not going to carry him, but I'll collision him and knock him out of the seam. But I'm playing curl, then flat. That's just letting everybody know what you're doing pre-snap, as opposed to letting it unfold through however the route distribution is. So the corner knows pre-snap, okay, I got to adjust my alignment because if 2 is in the seam, I got to be able to squeeze the seam. And I'm going to play 1 now from the top down. I'm not going to, if 2 is in, I can match 1, but I still can't give up leverage on the 7 cut, So basically what we're doing is that we're going to play skate to that side or a push to that side already to a certain degree. It just makes it easier. Like, we have pre-snap rules, I guess you could say. So, like, we have a couple different ways we can play a 2-man stack out of Ripley's. One of them is an area call. So you just let the route distribute and you just match it through your zone integrity. Then, I mean, we can get into the other ways later, but or if you get 2 guys outside the divider, right? So if 1 and 2 are really wide, we're not going to stretch that seam player all the way out and say we're going to match him, because more than likely he's going to end up coming back inside anyways. So we would go ahead and give that an area call. Let's see, tight end wing, or just a pro flank to that side. We can go ahead and area it. It just you can have your own rules, but ours are 2 outside the seam, 2-man stack, or a pro flank, so a tight end Z.
My next question is, because you've done this now at several schools, like, I mean, you talked a little bit about in your presentation, like, when you first time you were at Centerville is kind of when you deep dove into figuring out what ripple was, because at the time you were a big cover one high guy, and you're obviously you are not a 2 read fan by any means.
Right.
And then you took it and you installed it at Butler, and you showed some video of that, and you came back and reinstalled it at Centerville. When you take it from school to school, now that you've done that a couple of times, okay, what is your typical install progression, or what have you kind of figured out about your install progression as you jump from, say, a Centerville to a Butler, or Butler back to a Centerville?
Well, like, my install progression is much more aggressive than most. Because to me, like, Ripple is very taxing in the beginning because there's a lot of things you have to go over. But once you get going, and then it's just rinse and repeat. So the kids get really good at it. But so my day 1 install is we install Ripley's to a 21 personnel, and then we install it to 10 personnel. But where I think it makes it easier the way we do it is that we don't refer to receivers as their letters, right? So everybody is a number, and we number our receivers 1 through 5. So that way there's no too strong, too weak. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And to me, I think if you install area, and then regular zone match rules. So the rip Liz rules. And you're going to install the fast 3 rule, then you might as well install skate and buzz and skinny, because all those things are the same. Now you're changing the parts, right? And when we install it, nobody is like a corner, a free safety, a strong safety, an elk or a Mike or a Will or a Jack. Everybody's an X, right? And you just move the X's around wherever you want. And then, so you install it as corner. These are the deep outside third rules. Seam players, because a seam player could be the Mike, it could be the Will, it could be the free safety, it could be the strong safety, it could be the Jack, it could be the elk, it could be anybody. It could be a nickel, right? So it could be your third best corner, or it could be anybody. So we have seam rules, and then we have hook rules, right? And the good thing about all that is that the deep outside third player always relates to number 1. The seam player always relates to number 2, and the hook players always relate to number 3. So you have to know, basically, you have to know what zone do I have, and that's going to tell me what I have to do and who I relate to. So if, let's say something like just regular rip Liz, okay, and I am playing the strong side seam. Now I have, what is our seam rules? I relate to number 2. So now, let's say we go 3x1. Okay. Now I'm the seam player in 2x2. Well, our 3x1 rules means that we're pushing everybody out a zone. So seam, the way we teach the seam is if number 2 is vertical in the seam, you match him. If he does anything else, it doesn't matter what it is, you're a curl flat player, right? So I'm either seam or I'm the curl player. And then flat is my secondary. So if I'm pushing everybody out 1, then now if I'm the seam player and I get a 3x1 check, now I'm the flat player. If I'm the strong side hook player, right? We get a 3x1 check either by motion or by alignment, right? Now I become the curl player. If I'm the weak hook, now I become strong hook. If I'm the weak seam, and now we get a 3x1 check, now I'm the 4 or first crosser player, right? Or the weak side hook, however you want to call it. But I'm the 4 or first crosser player. So I got number 4 vertical in the seam, or I got the first crosser.
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple. And it's like that for 3 buzz, 6 skate. I say 6 skate, but skate can be ran out of a strong side rotation. But so I'm the same thing for buzz, skate, skinny, burn, like all that all goes in the same umbrella. So all thing I have to know is what's my job? I'm a hook player. Okay, I always relate to number 3. No matter where I'm at, I relate to number 3. So it doesn't matter where I start, right? That ball snapped, bam, my eyes go to 3. I'm pushing to the inside hip of number 3. I just need to know if I'm relating to 3, then I'm also going to carry his ass too, right? So I got him up and back. Now those, like I said, those parts can change, and that's, to me, is the beauty of the coverage, is that I get to dictate to you where I think you're going to throw the ball and how I'm going to match that route.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's certain situations that you want to call certain things, right? Like, I'm not a huge fan of skate, right? Like, I install it because it's a part of the puzzle, but to me, it's just not something, you're taking just the way of the coverage. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think there's more open areas, depending on, what the team does. Like, they're an RPO team. I'm not running skate. You could hold a gun to my head and tell me that I have to call skate. I ain't calling it. Like, it's not good against it. And then, plus the front dictates what we're going to do with it. Right. So we don't want to double rotate. So we don't want to be an under and then run 6 skate too, because now we're going to rotate right into the B gap bubble, or you're making this free safety play the A gap, which is not necessarily in his wheelhouse. So, plus two, I mean, I just, so there's different things you like about it. Like my favorite 3x1 check is probably 3 buzz. Um, it seems to fit our player's eye better, and it seems to fit kind of most of what we see anymore. So yeah, I mean, there's different things that I like about each one, but I think it's bottom line is like, who do I have, or what zone do I have, and now this is who I'm always going to relate to. And the rules are the same no matter what coverage we're in. If I'm a seam player, I'm this. If I'm the hook player, I'm this. It doesn't matter what the coverage is. The beauty of it is we're changing the rotation and we're changing the parts that are doing it.
Okay. Now my next question is, because as I'm deep diving into this, like obviously shallow by one. I mean, you let them go. You make your under calls. That's common sense. I mean, the great, and then obviously hitches, you can make your smash or call. There's calls you can make with that. But my question for you is, how do you teach your seam and your outside third players to deal with like slants by one or two? Because I think that's kind of where, to me, as I draw stuff, kind of the gray area.
Yeah. I have not his one, the first rule is there are no late under calls. Yeah. Right. So you don't have time to think about it. And really it's kind of one of those deals where it's a slant by one is not, to me, not that big a deal because the corner's eyes are right, and you should almost get like a double if it's slant out, right? You should already have an undercall coming anyways, or the guy or the seam player stacking the out. But the double slant, that's a tough one. It's sometimes you can win that, but by alignment, right? So if you already have that key, really just tell them, make a decision and live with it. So it's, yeah, I know some guys, or I've heard Kogan talk about like where they count steps, right?
Yeah.
I don't have my guys do that. Only because I think if they count steps at times, I think you can get into more of a man match concept. So I would rather have them drop to the seam and or drop to their zone. It's it's, I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer. My thing is, if you think it's an undercall, call an under. Like if everyone's on the same page, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. Like we should still be okay. But if you call an under when that guy's already made 3 steps towards a slant, then we're gonna have problems. You know what I mean? So I just tell our seam player, if you read it as a vertical release, match it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the easiest answer I can give you, right? So like the corner, it's easy for him. If it's double slant, his eyes are inside reading 2 anyways. And if 2 is in, then he knows I'm going to squeeze 1 from the top down regardless. The gray area becomes for that seam dropper. But again, if he reads it as a vertical release, then he needs to match it. But if he doesn't read it as a vertical release, then he's got to yell under right away.
Okay. No, again, that's been one of the things I've looked at. And the next thing with that is obviously full vert concept is, I mean, kind of what we're talking when we're especially playing riblet, trying to prevent when you get like a 4 verts concept where 1 and 2 switch pretty early. Do you have, and you've probably done both over the history, but do you have your corner and your seam players switch that?
No.
You just let them carry it and live with your seam player running with the quote unquote wheel or outside vert?
Yeah, no. We don't switch it.
Okay.
Because they should not be on the same level, right? And 2, the seam player can't see one. Like the corner can see it,
Yeah.
but the seam player can't see it. So we only switch vertical releases if our inside player has an inside leverage. But in Rip Liz, no, we don't switch swap releases or whatever you want to call it. We let it play out.
Okay, perfect, Coach. My next question is, and because had to teach this to an entire staff as you've researched it, when you've looked at drill work for this, specifically for your overhangs and your DBs, what does a typical practice and working these skills kind of look like for your seam players and your corners?
It's a lot of divider and leverage work, right? So for the corners, it's being able to be very intentional about the divider on every snap. Like I always tell our corners coach, like when we're 3-6 or 1, like the very, very first thing you need to look at is not his stance, but is he on the right divider? And so divider and leveraging the route. If the divider leverage moves post snap, so we work a lot of that, especially with corners. Doesn't happen a ton with the seam players, because for the seam players, it's pretty much the same. If he starts inside the divider, more than likely, you're only going to end up he'll be an outside. So that's an easier, to me, and when they go outside the divider, you automatically leverage it high and inside because just of the route concept you're going to get. The hardest part that I've found is the corner being able to, leverage a post the right way. When he starts outside the divider, and then you're high and inside and he takes off back in, a lot of times they end up getting on top of him. But we spent a lot of time with dividers and what the Dante Barty calls position maintenance, of when the divider changes. And then so with the corners, it's a lot of that. And then a lot of where's your body placement. So it's and tempoing the route in terms of getting out too fast, getting in the right, having the right depth, or, press bail. We do that quite a bit out of it. So with the corners, it's a lot of that. And then also a lot of smash rule, and then squeezing the seam with a proper divider leverage. That's immediately they always want to choke. They just want to just attack the seam route. And so teaching them what squeezing the seam really is, and then without attacking it. And then with the seam players, the seam players they have a lot to do. So we start off pretty easy, or with them, like very basic in the sense of I want them to drop to the seam. So they're going to shuffle out, that kick slide, whatever you want to call it, they're going to start off at 6 with outside leverage, and they're going to drop to the seam in their shuffle, and then a very slow pedal if they have to get into it. They want to get to that 10 to 12 yards. It's not going to take them very long to get there, and still maintaining the proper leverage. And then getting them to trust that if that guy does run vertical right down the seam, that you can still get there and leverage it the right way in that low shoulder, low hip area to be able to push him to the seam. And this year when we ran it, we did a lot of collision and carry with those guys because they were getting out so fast.
Mm-hmm.
That we went to that. So that was more of a inside shoulder, outside shoulder, catch and carry. But then once we get into the drop in the seam and be able to read that, then we get in. The next hardest one is that guy runs a speed out. they immediately want to turn their hips and drive on it like it's man coverage. And so getting them to trust that speed out, like, hey, he's not vertical in the seam, you're a curl flat player. Like, you have to shuffle and stack that out route from depth, right? Because we have that 5-yard no cover zone, so we don't want to drive on a speed out. So we're going to, as soon as he goes out, we immediately sink and start to shuffle in the direction he's going, and we peek back inside, and we got to make sure that we're stacking the out through the curl window to give that corner some time to drive on a curl. So that's the other one. That's the hardest one to get them to kind of understand. We get a lot of, especially in the beginning, that guy runs a speed out, and our seam player is ass and elbows on his upfield shoulder, and getting them to understand the coverage. We want that ball thrown out there. Like, we're going to leverage that, stack it, tackle it, and then let's go, 2nd 6, 2nd 7. Because what ends up happening is that when they turn and drive on it, that the angle in which they're shuffling to the seam, it automatically makes them round that route anyways. So when they're driving, they round it, and they end up either they overshoot the out route, so that guy cuts up on them, or they're going to be waylaid anyways. It messes up the whole order of things. So we just really take a lot of time to teach shuffling through and stacking that and driving. Then after that, it's, how to fit a dig, area calls in terms of if you get a shallow right now by 2, you got to squeeze back the hook, look for 3. And then we spend a lot of time teaching the sail technique. If we get a fast 3, so we get a push call post snap, getting them to, now they have to, I teach it, I think, probably a little bit different than most, just because it's high school kids. But so we're dropping to the seam, and we get a fast 3. As soon as they get that push call, I teach our guys to 2 speed shuffles out first, and then flip their hips at a 45 and try to leverage 2 and getting width and depth at the same time, like you would a cover 2 corner. So that way, because what we found with some of the high school guys being a little bit tighter, and their footwork's they're not as athletic. So if they just try to immediately get into a sail, that they were getting more vertical than they were getting width. So we were still getting out leverage by the 3 to the flat. So if they got a little bit of width first and then opened up, it was that momentum of them going here and then flipping their hips around. It allowed us to get more width, and we could still play the intermediate out route by 2, and then come up and tackle that.
Okay.
So it's a lot. The seam players have a lot. They have a lot to do. And then you got to do the same thing with the safeties, because they're replacing the seam players a lot. So it's the seam players have quite a bit of things to be able to, the corners, they got the easiest thing out there. They got vertical, curl, and post is basically all they got to really, and squeeze the seam. And squeezing the seam is easy if you pay attention and do it right. That's super easy. And then but the seam players, they got speed out, they got a 10-yard out, they got they got a 10-yard dig, they even have a skinny post, they got a vertical, they got a 7 cut. They have to defend a lot of things, and so it's not as individual for them early. There's a lot going on. Then like I said, then you throw in fast 3. So and that will dictate how they handle the fast 3 work early in the year. Will dictate if we're going to run a fast 3. Like, sometimes we don't have we just give it a gone call. And then if that back is fast at a flat, the backer just stacks it through. And then, so now we just switch it. So if we have a gone call, then we're more man dropping on number 1 or number 2. And then if he's under right now, then the seam player becomes the hook player.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's a little bit easier to do depending on the kids you got.
Yeah. Now, kind of my next question is, would your trips checks, because I mean, as you point out, the nice thing about this coverage is trip checks are pretty easy. You're kind of just moving pieces, like really where, I mean, the dumbed down short version is from what I've seen is, where do you want to put your roll down safety is really where a lot of the trips checks come into, is what do you want his responsibility to be, and how's that affect, it usually affects one other guy, but could affect up to 2 or 3 other people. How much does that affect your run fits as you do your various checks, and how much with your run fits are they initially one gap players?
Well, it depends on when we're in 3-6, we're going to do everything we can to make it a gap fit, right? So basically, kind of the way we run it, if we run, say, something like 3 buzz, then both backers are still in the box.
Yeah.
Okay. So the drop safety becomes our I won't say he's our extra fitter, on perimeter run. And then, but both backers are still in the box. So we're giving you a 6-man box. And then the drop down safety becomes, I mean, he's an RPO player first, depending on where the back is. If the back is to the trips, so we have a loaded formation, he's playing the RPO first. And then if it's a split formation, then he's reading a quarterback for high ball, low ball. So if it's high ball, he's going to hang on 3 before he pushes the 2. But any kind of run game, he's the guy that ends up making, like, we get outside zone to 3x2 to a split formation. He's the one that always ends up making that play, because all he's got to do is just keep going vertical, and he can set the edge faster than anybody else can. And for some reason, they never account for him in the blocking scheme. Like, number 3 always goes and tries to lock the box on the inside backer. And then, so he's literally scot-free coming. If it's 6, now our Mike linebacker becomes the extra fitter, or the force player. I guess that he'd be the force player to the strong side, because now those two have just, the Mike now has become what the strong safety was in 3 buzz. But now we've added our free safety, the drop safety, down into the run fit to the weak side.
Yeah.
So he will play off of, because we boss our backers to the strength. So he will play B gap to C gap, depending on what the call is, what the line movement, or what the defensive end does. So we allow our defensive end to primary, secondary gap, C to B, and then he just fits off of him.
Yeah.
So that's how we get our 6th player in the fit.
Okay. Perfect. Now, my next question is, and this might not be a Rip Liz or Cover 3 answer, and I honestly don't know how much you see it in the GWalk, because I haven't really paid attention outside of watching the couple times I've come watch you guys when we're off or near the playoffs. Is how do you deal with empty, like, 4x1 formations? I know there's several ways to deal with it, but, like, I just came from the CBC, and I mean, I had 2 or 3 teams that would go empty 4x1. A lot of times they had a mobile quarterback that they would just run with it, but they would also run some concepts out of it. How do you, I mean, without specific, like, they do this out of it, what are your initial thoughts when you hear somebody's going 4x1 empty?
We just run 3 buzz.
Okay.
Yeah, every time we get any kind of 4x1, whether it's motion 2 or they start off in it, we automatically go 3 buzz and just push everybody strong.
Okay.
and everything, and that turns it into a pass back rule.
Yeah.
Because there is no threat of there's no threat of 4 vertical to the weak side. So everything's an automatic pass back across the field.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. And then the last question I want to ask you before we get off here is we've had this conversation in text, and I've asked this, I think I know I've asked it in Facebook groups. I don't remember if I asked it on Twitter or not, because you ran a little bit of 2-trap this year.
Yeah.
And I did the rabbit hole trying to figure out what the heck the actual difference between 2-trap and palms were, and obviously there is a difference in how, especially the technique of the corner. But for you and how you guys, because you like to run some of your pressures behind it, on in front of it, however you want to word it. For you, what is 2-trap, and then why did you add that little wrinkle this year?
Yeah, we run 2-trap as a fire zone. So if we do, when we ran it, it was always with some kind of 5-man pressure. I don't think we ran it with a 4-man. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
I like it because it, there's that element of not many high school teams do it, right? It looks like man coverage, or you can make it look like man coverage. And I really like it to 3x1 a lot, because you're going to take away any of their hot reads right away. So how we play it, obviously we're super aggressive on the corners, and then and I like it. It's a good compliment to Rip Liz, and it's a very good compliment, I think, to 3 under 3 deep. So we added it because this year we had switched everything, and this is why we ran more cover 1 than anything, is that we got out of running 3 under 3 deep. Only because I did not I'm not a huge fan of 3 under 3 deep to 3x1, and that's what we see the most of. And just because I think you get bigger windows, and it's a little bit more difficult for the hook player, I think. I still haven't been able to find something that really, everybody says like, oh, you run Rip Liz, you should be able to run 3 under 3 deep easy. Like, yeah, but we have one less player. I mean, that's a little bit different, right? I mean, you're taking away a piece of the puzzle. It doesn't fit my mind. So we ran a lot more regular cover 1 or 1 robber. We call it a 1 robber. A lot of people call it 1 lurk, which is a tremendous coverage. But though they complement each other well, which you can make them look like pre-snap. So we are our corner is trapping the first thing to the flat. So as soon as he sees anything, he's triggering right away. And then everybody else is playing a man match concept with whoever they're relating to, and in Rip Liz, we're matching everything vertical and out. In our 2-trap concept, we are matching everything vertical and back towards the ball. So we're able to maintain inside leverage and take away those quick hot throws through leverage and push everything out wide under duress, theoretically speaking. The weakness of the coverage is the middle of the field is wide open, right? Because the safety's got to get more width, right? And then you're going to have, more than likely, you're going to have an interior skill player matching a slot receiver down the middle of the field. Like we ran it against Springfield in the playoff game, and basically it was kind of a combination of a couple of things. But so we had our Mike linebacker running with a slot receiver vertical. I'm sorry, with the number 3 receiver vertical, and the backside safety got too wide, right? And then a combination of the linebacker not running the coverage, but it was still would have been a tougher play for him because he's having to run with speed down the middle of the field, but his zone dropped and the guy ran right by him. But but against, and we were able to get a pick, off of it. We had a lot of success against Wayne with it. It's some kind of interior 5-man pressure, and then we're trapping the flat and matching everything vertical and back towards the ball. And if you give us, the 3-by-1 adjustments to it is that now we're going to roll to it. So you get, the backside safety now, instead of now you're playing an inverted 2 to the backside, and to the front side, you're playing a roll cover 2 to it with a trap player. And now you can really make it look like cover 1, right? Because you can put that roll safety in the middle of the field with some depth, and it looks like it's cover 1 to the quarterback. Then the ball is snapped and all those parts start moving, and now he's got pressure coming up at him. We got a lot of miles out of that this year, and it was really I want to say I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I literally just did them this afternoon. I think we ran 2 trap, I want to say 23 times this year. So, 23 times against our schedule with the teams. I mean, 3 of the 4 teams that are in the Final Four in Division I right now, either we played or we practiced against, and we were able to be pretty successful with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do some other things with the front, but it's with the corner playing the backside half to his side. It's not a whole lot different than teaching him how to play the seam, right? You got obviously you can't trap the flat when you have a player dropping from the box to the weak side flat, but we call that a slice technique. So he's going to push right to 1 right away. If 1 tries to cross his face, he's going to take him back across the ball. And then, the roll portion of it is not a whole lot different than our backside safety when we play 6 buzz. Like 6 buzz is one that I can't believe you haven't even asked me about. That's like my favorite freaking cover 6 coverage. And to me, that 6 buzz is a game changer. I love that coverage. And if you're thinking about running some kind of cover 6 in the 1 high world, to me, you're a fool if you don't run 6 buzz. But it's the same technique as him when he's running. I mean, for the most part, it's very similar to that technique.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of carryovers, a lot more carryover than you think. So it's, it was good for us. We just play it very aggressively. And it was good to us for the most part. I think out of 23 plays, the only other play that hurt us, obviously that play against Springfield hurt us, but outside of that, it was more of a QB scramble type thing, kind of hurt us a little bit because you're playing in some kind of man match. Everybody's got their back to the quarterback. QB scramble at times can be a problem.
Yeah.
But 6 buzz is your answer to 6 skate. I'm not gonna let you off the hook.
Here's the reason, and I'll let you get your 6 buzz, and I'll even add to my notes. Is I've gotten through, like I said, I'm beginning this deep dive, and I've gotten through the skate, the skinny. I've not really hit the Mabel/Buzz section of my in-depth research yet. Okay, I'm not the Ripple is encyclopedia that you are, John. Okay, let's start there. Okay, so yeah, okay, so for the illiterate Ripple is person here, go ahead and explain to me what 6 buzz is and why every Ripple-ish person should run it.
Well, you can run it with, it's a weak side rotation, obviously, but it's great in the passing down because to us, if we run 6 skate or 6 skinny and they have speed at 3, we automatically check that to 6 buzz. Now we keep the front side call, whether it's skate or skinny, it doesn't matter, right? Because it has no bearing on the back, but it's just what the backside guys do. Some guys like Alabama, Vic Fangio's system, like they have it built into the call already. So they call it 6 sight, I think, or they call it sight or whatever. Fangio doesn't, I don't think, uses the same numbering system, but basically it's called sight, and they just kind of read what the running back does, and that will dictate who becomes the strong hook player and who becomes the seam player. We just pre-snap call it. So if it's speed at 3, like our will linebacker in our system is our traditional neck roll, thick ankled linebacker, right? So we don't want that guy carrying 3 vertical. Like, i.e., Ohio State versus Alabama in the national championship game when the linebacker was trying to carry Devontae Smith and he scored a touchdown, right? Like that, they were playing skate on that. We would automatically check out of that pre-snap. And basically what that is that, so now the weak side seam player and the weak side hook player just switch responsibilities. So now our will linebacker becomes our weak side, our first crosser player, and he's going to match the back out of the backfield. And then our free safety now is going to push to the inside of number 3 from depth. And now he's going to match 3 up and back. So it's very similar to playing like a quarters poach technique. It's the same type of coverage. I love it on 3rd and long. I love it versus teams that run, 3-by-1 drive or shallow, whatever the hell you want to call it, out of 3-by-1. Where you have that intermediate, dig route. It's great versus that because it's, especially in high school, I think, because you're coming from the opposite side that the quarterback is reading. So the quarterback's reading the front side hook player, and he's going to drive on the shallow, so he thinks the dig's going to be there, and then next thing you know, there you are. Or the number 3 opens up when he's running the bender, and then next thing you know, the free safety is sitting there waiting for him, right? Like I think it's a very, very good coverage on 3rd and long, but it's an automatic check for us if there's speed at 3, so we don't have a slow kid trying to carry a fast kid.
Yeah. And yeah, because you said sight, and then I went through my 18 pages of notes that I already have. And in the video I watched Cody Alexander talk about 3-by-1. That's where I wrote down sight. I was trying to figure out where it was. I just couldn't remember where I heard the term.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust high school kids. I think it's easy on paper, but I can't imagine that. You're asking, one of the reasons why I don't like 2 read is because you're asking 3 kids to be on the same page, right? Like you talk about a gray area with undercalls. It's nothing but gray, in my opinion, in 2 read. And so now you're going to have a linebacker who's thinking run. And then, I don't know. So I just say, hell with it. We just call 6 buzz.
Yeah. And so like I said, I was just trying to figure out, like I said, now that makes sense. Because I remember, like I said, I remember seeing sight, and I think I've written down buzz, I think once, but I've mostly seen the 3 buzz stuff, not the 6. So
yeah, I don't know what it's the technical term for that is.
Yeah.
But we just call it 6 buzz.
Okay.
But the other one that you're going to want to take a look at, if you're going to get into it, is a good complement to 3 buzz is we call it 3 burn. I don't know what I think I was listening to Vass, his podcast a couple years ago. And I think it was the guy, not Orlando, but the next guy at Texas, Tulowitz, and I was on his Discord talking about with this guy, Coach Slade Calhoun from Memphis, who's a guy you would want to do a clinic with. He's super smart, and his teams are really good. But so we were talking about three. I just picked up Burn. I think Burn might actually be an Aranda thing. But anyways, it is 3 buzz, except for now, instead of that guy dropping over 3 and then pushing a 2, the strong safety, the strong side rotation guy, now the seam player, and the corner are all playing Rip Liz on 1, 2, and 3. So they're going to match. He's going to match 3 vertical and out.
Yeah.
So you get used to that guy, rotating over the top, hanging on 3, and then pushing a 2, where you get your zone. Now he's sitting there at depth, and he's going to match 3 vertical. So if we get speed at 3, we're going to check to burn, or we're going to check to 6 buzz, and let our guys that are faster match those vertical routes from depth. And now you take your strong hook player, who in 3 buzz is your Mike linebacker, who in our defense is faster of the 2. He is responsible for carrying 3 up and back in 3 buzz. Now he's only got to match 3 on a shallow. So if he goes vertical, he's just going to post him in the hook just like he would in stubby or stump. So we're not teaching him anything new. And so he's going to try to bang that guy out of the middle of the field and push him to the safety. But we have 3 guys to the field, matching guys vertical and out, with a safety rotating to the middle of the field. And the only thing we've done now is that we've just switched like 6 buzz and 3 burn. Now we've only switched 2 guys' responsibilities. Everybody else plays the same, but the strong safety and the Mike switch, just like in what we call 6 buzz. The will linebacker and the free safety would switch.
Okay.
So you get the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look at that more.
The rabbit hole is endless, Bandstra.
Well, now I have to look up 3 burn and 6 burn and figure out where that's at. And
I'll share my Google stuff with you.
Okay. So
it's all in there.
I'll have a rabbit hole to fill. So, all right, coaches. Because me and John could literally probably talk for hours and just go down rabbit hole. One, obviously, give him a follow on Twitter if you haven't already. B, his links to both his clinics, our prior podcast, will be in the bio. So you can check all that stuff out if you want to learn more about Rip Liz. John also in his presentations has also a bunch of great resources on books and other stuff to visit. Actually added one of his books that he mentioned on his first presentation to my Amazon cart today. And then other than that, like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. Check out
which book?
Oh, you asked me too quickly. Give me a second. I'll tell you once we get off here.
Okay.
And that's another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.